Goedemiddag iedereen, hartelijk welkom hier in Leiden. En een hele speciale gast vandaag. Ooit als heel jong meisje begon ze bij de Beatlesfanclub in Engeland. En ja, stond naast de 4 Beatles. En nu zit ze hier naast mij, dat is helemaal mooi.
No idea what he said.
It's only
I'm
nice.
just hoping it's good.
Only nice.
En vorig jaar is er een hele mooie documentaire, die is ook signeerd uitgekomen, Good Old Freda. Jullie zeker moeten gaan kijken en kopen. Ik geef het woord aan Freda Kelly.
Okay.
Dat klopt. En Dave gaat haar interviewen en ik zal het vertalen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't want to ruin it for those who bought the DVD, so we're just going to play it by ear and see what happens. I don't want to say too many stories, it ruins it for you. But the first question I want to ask Freda is if she just explain how she came to work for Brian Epstein at NEMS.
Right, I was a secretary around the corner from where the cavern was, and I used to go to the cavern in my lunch hour. And I got to know the Beatles would go so often. And then Brian Epstein got to know me through them. But I knew who he was because he was manager of the biggest record shop in Liverpool. And then when he decided to sign the Beatles up, he needed some office staff. So he knew I was a secretary. He had a secretary from NEMS anyway, but he wanted somebody else. And then he offered me the job. So that's how I got the job.
So, shall I translate it? Ze was dus secretaresse al in de buurt van de cavern, kwam heel vaak in de cavern en kwam daar ook Brian Epstein tegen. Die had al een secretaresse, maar iemand nog nodig die hem verder hielp. En dat werd dus Freda.
And what were the Beatles like at that time in the cavern?
I just wish all Beatle fans could really see the Beatles in the cavern, because to me that was the real Beatles. You know, later on they would put in suits and everything, but I like them when, well, I would say the raw Beatles in their leather gear and messing about on stage and fooling with each other and talking to the audience.
Nou, de echte Beatles waren dus ja, de band die zij in de cavern zag in leren outfit en die grapjes maakte op het podium. En later werden ze natuurlijk in pakken gestoken en alles. Maar de echte Beatles, ze had eigenlijk gewild dat iedereen die band had kunnen zien in de cavern.
And you had your own little spot. All the fans did, all the regular fans had their own little spot in the cavern, and you were able to ask them to sing songs for you, pass notes up onto stage. What sort of songs would they do for you?
One of my favourites was Anna. I didn't really sit down, I used to hide behind a wall. I was in one of the arches and just looking straight at the stage. I was on the left hand side, so I say you were John, I could just look up to him and say, sing Anna. Another one I liked was George doing Three Cool Cats, because to me the Liverpool accent comes out a lot in that. Tell me to shut up, because I might just keep talking.
I have to remember everything, which is, that's no problem. In de begindagen kon je dus ook gewoon nog briefjes naar de Beatles, aan de Beatles geven en vragen welk nummer ze speelden. Zij stond altijd ergens aan de zijkant onder een van de bogen. Ik weet niet of mensen wel eens in de replica van de cavern zijn geweest. Haar favoriete nummers waren Anna en Three Cool Cats. Door George gezongen, omdat hij zo mooi in een Liverpools accent dat zong.
Now, obviously, this was before the Beatles were famous. What were they like as they were building up to that fame? Before they went to EMI, they were just getting better and better and better. And then they sort of became famous in Liverpool. What was it like when they became famous across England first, across Britain?
Well, I didn't really notice the fame at first, because they were coming in at the office and I didn't go to a lot of the bookings around England, but the penny dropped with me, or dawned on me, when I went to the civic reception, and I couldn't believe the amount of people that turned out to see them, and then I realised that they were famous. You know, I thought, oh my God, yeah, they are famous.
Het duurde wel even voordat ze echt door had hoe beroemd de Beatles waren. Dat was eigenlijk toen ze door de burgemeester werden ontvangen. En ja, toen viel het muntje echt letterlijk, en nou niet letterlijk wel. Maar toen viel het muntje en zag ze inderdaad hoe enorm populair de Beatles aan het worden waren.
Yeah, the civic reception was in 1964 in Liverpool, which is it's covered in the DVD. But before that, they'd gone to America. Do you remember what it was like when they were?
Well, there was no mobile phones or anything. I mean, we were completely on edge in the office and the parents, wondering how America would react to them. So, because other people had gone, like Cliff Richards, and he didn't go down very well in America. I mean, I'm not a Cliff Richards fan, by the way. But when we were all waiting for the phone call from Brian Epstein, and then when he rang, I was there. My friend worked on reception, so she took the call. Her name was Laurie, and then he told us what was going on in America, and we were so pleased that America liked them.
Nou, in die tijd had je natuurlijk nog geen mobieltjes, dus het was nog even spannend hoe Amerika de Beatles zou ontvangen. Cliff Richard was er ook al geweest, was er geen fan van in Zopus. Maar die werd daar niet echt goed ontvangen. Dus het was heel spannend en wachtend op een telefoontje en dat kwam uiteindelijk. En toen bleek dus dat ze inderdaad in Amerika ook verschrikkelijk populair waren.
What I would like to say about America is, John and Paul were the favourites, we'll say, in England and in Europe, and people like George. But America really wanted Ringo, and I was so pleased about that. I mean, Ringo isn't my favourite Beatle. I don't have a favourite Beatle, and that's the truth. But I really was pleased that America took to Ringo. And I thought, hey, he's the famous one over there.
In Engeland waren het vooral John en Paul die populair waren, en George ook wel. Maar Amerika viel echt voor Ringo, en hoewel ze geen persoonlijke favoriet heeft, was ze ontzettend blij voor Ringo dat hij daar zo goed ontvangen werd in Amerika.
And through all this time, the Beatles fan club had started in Liverpool, started small, and it had built up. 1964 was the big year when it went worldwide. What was it like being in charge of the fan club at that time?
Well, people think I started the fan club. I didn't. A girl called Roberta Brown started the fan club. This was before Brian Epstein. And I knew Bob, we called her Bobby, and I knew Bobby very well. And because I had secretarial skills, she asked me to help her. But my first job, excuse me, was secretary to Brian Epstein with another girl. And Bobby wanted to pack the fan club up because, it was getting a bit too heavy for her. And then it was automatically put in my lap at Brian Epstein and said, right, Freda, you take over the fan club.
Ze heeft dus de fanclub niet opgericht, dat was Bobby Brown, een meisje. Maar die werd het allemaal wat te veel en zij was secretaresse voor Brian Epstein. Brian Epstein heeft haar vervolgens gevraagd om de fanclub over te nemen.
The fan club used to give away every Christmas a little gift to the fans, and this was through your research in one way. You've joined a couple of fan clubs to see what fan clubs were given, what the fans were given, and they came up with the idea. Christmas '63 it started with a little Christmas disc, which is where the Good Old Freda title comes from. George calls it Good Old Freda on the record, and they all shout it out. But the fan club really did give value for money, and it was a really good way of keeping in touch with all the fans.
Yeah, I think, I'm not just saying it, but I think it was one of the best fan clubs. You certainly got a lot for your money. The Beatles really respected their fans, and they knew without the fans they wouldn't be as famous as they were. And they were very involved in the fan club. And I think it was the press officer's idea. Let's give them a present for Christmas, and we'll give them this fan club record. So that's how it started. I don't want to talk too much.
Freda zegt dat ze van mening is dat de Beatle fanclub, de Engelse Beatle fanclub, een van de beste fanclubs was ter wereld. Dat klopt ook wel. Ze hadden bijvoorbeeld van die flexi-singeltjes. Daar komt ook de titel van de DVD vandaan, Good Old Freda, want dat schreeuwt George op het singeltje. Dat was een idee van de persmensen, maar de Beatles waren zeer betrokken bij de fanclub. En gewoon hebben een goede fanclub.
How many sort of members, can you remember the membership, how many members there were?
At the peak, when I was responsible for worldwide, we had about 40,000 members, which really got out of hand. near the end I wasn't coping at all with it. I mean, I was hardly getting any sleep. And then we decided to have secretaries in England for each county. And then I had overseas secretaries. I had one in Holland actually. And they came under my wing, so I was hoping that the people in Holland would write to the Dutch fan club and the people in Sweden would write to the Swedish fan club. So that took a little bit of pressure off me.
Op het hoogtepunt van de roem waren er maar liefst 40.000 mensen die lid waren van de fanclub. Dat werd voor jou ook iets te veel. Dus er werden ook weer hoofden aangewezen die in elk gewest zeg maar, in Engeland de leiding kregen. En ook in het buitenland, waaronder in Nederland. Dat was Haar van Vulpen, de oprichter van de Nederlandse fanclub, waar Beatlesfanclub.nl weer uit voortgevloeid is. Kijk, dat was het.
Okay, right. And at this point, I would like to give Freda the opportunity to clear up something. There's a lot of people have probably seen it on eBay or things like that. It will say genuine Beatles autograph, but a lot of people say, oh no, they're fan club autographs, or they were signed by Freda Kelly. Freda never signed the Beatles autographs.
No, there is a lot of false autographs out there, but and I will only put my name to a signature when I know it was done in the fan club, because the Beatles were in and out of the offices all the time, and I would get them to sign things because I always had a special area with just autograph books and photographs. But I mean, there was too many people writing in for autographs, so we did have a stamp, a roller stamp, which I wasn't keen on, and John didn't like it either. But I would never have signed their autographs, because the bottom line is I am a Beatle fan, and I would hate to get a copy signature, you know, so I wouldn't do that to people. But I know it went on in London. I won't give any names, you know, but I wasn't involved in that. Thank goodness.
Nou, er worden heel veel handtekeningen aangeboden op eBay, ook heel veel valse. Er wordt ook wel eens gesuggereerd dat Freda Kelly die handtekeningen heeft gezet. Dat is dus absoluut niet waar. Ze gaf wel heel vaak foto's aan de Beatles als ze het kantoor in en uitliepen. Maar zij deed er nooit aan mee. Ze hadden wel een stempel met de handtekeningen. En in Londen werden wel er waren wel een aantal mensen die valse handtekeningen zetten. Maar ja, Freda was een echte Beatle-fan en die vond dat je dat niet kon maken en heeft dus nooit daaraan meegewerkt.
I do remember, I mean, when people wrote in and sent their autograph books in, if they'd sent me a stamped addressed envelope, it was even better, because I could just get them to sign. Very quick movement. But if somebody said, you know, can you get me Paul's autograph, and John was in the office, I'd get John to sign the book, and I would just send it off, because I thought, well, right, that's another autograph out of the way. And I would write on the back of the compliment slip, you know, I know you wanted Paul, but sorry, you know, it was only John was in today. They never wrote back and said, I didn't want John. I never got any returns.
Het was helemaal mooi als mensen dus al een antwoordenvelop met een postzegel erbij deden, want dan kon ze het zo terugsturen. En soms waren er mensen die specifiek om een handtekening van Paul vroegen, maar die was dan niet op kantoor en dan was John er wel en dan liet ze John gewoon tekenen. En ze schreef ze op de achterkant dat ja, helaas Paul niet op kantoor was, maar John wel. Maar er was nooit iemand uiteraard geweest die daar enig probleem mee had.
Just want to jump forward a couple of years now. You were involved in 1967 during the filming of Magical Mystery Tour, when a few of the fan club secretaries were with you on that. Just explain about Magical Mystery Tour.
Right, I got the phone call from London, Tony Barrow, and then said Paul is looking to do, you know, this little film or DVD or whatever, and he'd like you in it. He said, but it's a day trip, and we're going to put 4 girls, you know, like friends. So he said, right, you better pick 3 area secretaries to go with you. So I rang. I know one of the girls wasn't in, so she never got to come with me, and she's kicking herself now. But the other 3 I just rang, the ones that were the nearest to London, you know. And I was supposed to stay 2 weeks, but at the end of 1 week I'd had enough of the madness, and I thought, oh, you know, I've had enough of this, I want to go home. So I only stayed a week. But when I look back now and I think, you know, I must have been mental. You know, imagine saying to somebody, you could have had 2 weeks with the Beatles, and I refused, you know. I think, but I did, you know, I stayed with them.
Ze had haar kans op 2 weken met de Beatles in de bus voor de Magical Mystery Tour. Ze werd gevraagd door Tony Barrow, hun persagent. En zij heeft 3 andere mensen van de Beatlesfanclub gevraagd die dichtst in de buurt woonden om mee te gaan, waarvan er eentje niet kon en die heeft nog steeds daar erg van spijt van. Freda had dus 2 weken kunnen gaan, maar na 1 week was ze het helemaal zat en is ze dus uit de bus gestapt. En nu vraagt ze zich af waarom ze dat in godsnaam gedaan heeft.
Does it not surprise then today these sort of events are still going on, they're still fun, it's 50 years ago, but it's still going on, the Beatles are probably bigger than ever, there's that much stuff. Does it make you feel proud?
Yeah, it makes me, you know, realise how lucky I was, you know, to actually work for them. And I mean, I got paid for it as well, you know, but when I ended the fan club and when I left the company, I thought that was going to be it. You know, as far as I'm concerned, I'd finished, and you know, I'd done 10 years with them. I wanted to move on, and I never ever visualised anything like this, you know. But I'm so glad you invited me.
Toen de fanclub stopte in 1972 had ze nooit kunnen vermoeden dat het 50 jaar na dato nog steeds zo'n verschrikkelijk populaire band is. Ja, dat verbaast haar nog steeds en ze is ontzettend blij mee. Ze is ook ontzettend blij dat ze daarop hier mag zijn.
So we'll just explain a little bit about the background to the DVD, because you were getting people saying that you must write a book for years. They were trying to get you to write a book, but you eventually got the opportunity to make the DVD.
Well, how that came about was, you know, I would say, for want of a better word, lay low for 40 years, and I just, you know, I didn't really want to get involved in what was going on. And then eventually, after much persuasion, I was invited to America, and I just couldn't believe the reaction, you know, because I was trying to get over to people. You know, I'm not a wife, I'm not a girlfriend, I was just admin. But as Tony Barrow said, like, I knew about the parents and everything. So after that, people were saying, well, you should write a book, you should do this, you should do that. And I think, oh no, you know. But then my daughter said, you know, Mum, you're getting old and your memory box is going to go, you suffer from dementia, and, you know, why don't you just say something or put it down on tape, you know, for my grandson. So, because I thought, I don't want him thinking like I lived a boring life. I'd like him to know what I'd done in my youth. So that's how the DVD started. It wasn't going to be a film or anything. It was just going to be a little DVD for my grandson. And that is the truth, but it like expanded.
Freda vertelt hoe de DVD tot stand is gekomen. Ze heeft eerst 40 jaar eigenlijk buiten het spotlight geleefd, maar kreeg steeds meer vragen of ze iets over de Beatles wilde vertellen, maar ze was geen vriendin van ze of had geen relatie met ze, dus ja, die boot hield ze altijd af, maar ze wilde toch iets voor haar kleinzoon achterlaten voordat de dementie in zou zetten. En wat eigenlijk bedoeld was om alleen een film te zijn voor haar kleinkind, is dus de film geworden die hier ook te koop is.
At this point, we're going to have there's 2 little sessions, I think. There's 2 interviews. We're going to have a 10-minute break.
I believe so.
So I bet at this point, I better pass it over to you. If anybody's got any questions they want to ask Freda, to put your hand up. There you go. Question 1.
You told us that at the peak there were 40,000 members. How many Christmas records did you have to make then?
Well, yeah, but you know, whatever members we had, we sent them out. But only, sorry, really, it was Europe and England got them. You know, it wasn't America, because America, there was a fan club secretary in America. So, you know, she got a copy and it was printed over in America. But you know, it wasn't just me doing the fan club. You know, I had a lot of helpers. Anybody that came in the office, whether they were a fan or a road manager to a group or a relation or anything, you know, I was very hard on people. I made them work. I didn't mind how long they stayed in the office, because There was 2 offices. Like I had my own office, and then I had a general office, and I had all the demo discs of Brian Epstein's people, so they could hear these records before they were printed, you know. So they would come in, and also, I don't know if it happens over here, but groups in Liverpool never had any money. You know, they were always broke. So they got free cups of coffee and free tea in the office. But I would make them work, you know, it was do something, you know, things that I didn't have to do, like opening envelopes, putting photographs in envelopes. One thing I did do, I used to, I don't know, you know, this is like way back, a Gestettener, you know, where I would type through carbon paper and then put it on a big machine. And I would do that and then leave it to somebody then to make sure like 200 copies came out every so many times. And then I'd get people to put them in envelopes.
Ja, in de hoogtijdagen waren dus inderdaad 40.000 mensen lid. De vraag was eigenlijk of die allemaal ook zo'n singeltje kregen. Ja, met name dan dus in Europa kreeg iedereen de single en er werd ook een kopietje gestuurd naar Amerika. En Freda vertelde dat ze er niet alleen voor stond, want iedereen die maar al dan niet toevallig op kantoor binnenkwam, die werd, daar ging de zweep overheen en zette Freda aan het werk. Dus groepen, Liverpoolse groepen die geen geld hadden en daarvoor gratis koffie naar binnen kwamen, die werden dan meteen aan het kopiëren gezet of moesten dingen in enveloppen stoppen.
You didn't move to London in '64?
No, I was offered, you know, they wanted me to move to London, but my father wouldn't let me go. He thought London was a den of iniquity, so he didn't want me going. So nobody actually went to Brian Epstein to hand in their notices. You know, the way you left the company then in those days was you got the sack, and I think I was the only one that went in and said I want to leave. And it's in the film, you know. Lucky enough, they didn't accept my notice, so they kept me in Liverpool. But I did go to London a lot. I used to go on average every 6 weeks. You know, I just didn't live in London.
Ja, ze mocht dus niet naar ze mocht dus niet naar Londen van haar vader, want dat was een poel des verderfs en daar mocht zij niet wonen. De enige manier waarop je uit de organisatie van Brian Epstein weg kon komen was als je ontslagen werd. Freda was de enige die zelf zei van ik mag niet naar Londen, dus ontsla me maar. Dat hebben ze dus ook niet gedaan en eens in de 6 weken ging zij wel naar Londen toe.
I mean, it's not in the film. Well, I think it might be on the extras, but my father didn't really want me having the job anyway, because when I got offered the job, unknown to me, he went down to Brian Epstein to see what type of job it was, and then came back to me and said I wasn't taking the job, there was no future in it, it wasn't a career. I know. And lucky enough, I persuaded him to give me 1 year. So he relented in the end. You can have a year, but he never really came around to a proper job.
Mijn vader vond het eigenlijk helemaal niks dat ze voor de Beatles werkte. Een van de bonusopnames op de DVD. Ze vertelde dus ook dat zonder dat ze het wist, hij naar Brian Epstein was gegaan om toch te kijken wat ze nou ging doen. En Freda heeft haar vader overtuigd om in ieder geval 1 jaar voor de Beatles te mogen werken en hij vond het eigenlijk nog steeds geen echte goede baan.
Right, I mean, I didn't get involved in that side. I opened the door to Apple because it's quite difficult to open Apple's door. There's certain numbers you ring up. So I just said to the film crew, you know, there you go. But I knew I could do it without their permission because I wasn't putting anything in it. But then through the film crew I heard that they had given me carte blanche before it was finished. I think they knew that, you know, I wouldn't spill the beans. And also, I don't know if you know or not, but people don't really get Beatles songs, you know, for adverts or anything. Or if they did 10 years ago, they gave a friend of theirs the song, but they were charged a lot of money, money that the film crew didn't have. And you also have to have, there's 4 directors in Apple, and if you go to Apple for anything, you have to have the 4 votes. If you get 3 votes and 1 against you, they don't give you it, and they don't tell you who's against you. Now, in those directors, there was 2 I didn't know. I never met George's wife. I wouldn't know her if I fell over her. Yoko I had met, but I don't really know her. Richie I knew I could bank on. And Paul I didn't know which way he would go. So I just left it to the film crew, and then when they told me that, they said, you've got carte blanche on what you want to say, and also they gave me 4 songs and the fan club record.
Ja, de film is dus... Oh yes, dat doe. De film is dus gemaakt in principe zonder toestemming van Apple. Apple is een zeer rigide organisatie met 4 directeuren, namelijk Paul, Ringo en de vrouw van George, Patty, en Yoko. Olivia, sorry, ja, ik loop er eentje achter. Olivia, inderdaad. En ondanks het feit dat zij zich daar niet mee bemoeide en dat allemaal aan de filmcrew overliet, heeft ze wel de kans gekregen om een aantal Beatle-nummers te mogen gebruiken. En dat is zeer uniek, want je hebt als je via Apple iets geregeld wil krijgen, heb je dus de toestemming nodig van alle directeuren. En je hoort ook nooit wie er dan afwijzend tegenover staat of niet. Maar ze kreeg carte blanche en mocht dus gewoon ook nog gebruik maken van die nummers waar ze normaal heel veel geld voor vragen.
Yeah, but also, I'm not being big-headed here, but the DVD wasn't about the Beatles. It was me talking to my grandson. So I just wanted him to know what I'd done and how I ran the fan club, and just spoke to the director, you know, and I thought it was just going to be my little story tonight. So I didn't think it was, they were going to go to Apple in the beginning or make this film, or, I mean, how it became a film was the director, he just makes DVDs, but documentaries, and he wanted himself to be known, which is right, so he applied to film festivals. Now you don't just get in film festivals, they decide what pictures they're going to take. So that's how it ended up in a film.
Nou, het was dus ook helemaal niet de bedoeling om een film te maken over de Beatles. Het was echt gewoon de bedoeling om een film te maken voor haar kleinzoon. En de regisseur, die probeerde ook naam te maken. En dan is het heel moeilijk om bij festivals binnen te komen. En hij zag daarin, in deze documentaire, daarin een kans om daar bij een of ander festival door te breken. En zo is eigenlijk de hele film ontstaan.
Should we just have the one talking, and so I don't have to come back, or you don't have to go out and go back in? What do you think? Carry on.
Ja, laten we even wisselen en mensen buiten staan.
I have another question.
Nog één vraag.
Were you already involved when Pete Best was sacked?
Well, I knew them. I was involved with them, but I didn't work for them. I didn't work for them until 1962. But I mean, I went to see them when Pete Best was with them.
What, in your opinion, was the true reason that they sacked him?
Well, there is a number of reasons. It isn't just one reason. If you read Mark Lewisham's book, I haven't read it yet. I've read a bit of it, so I don't know what he put in it, but I'm sure he put the truth in it. I mean, I'm still friendly with Pete. I still see Pete, but this is just my opinion, not anybody else's here. But I think Richie was better. I think he was the other bit of jigsaw that made that jigsaw go together. He was more lively and he was different to Pete, although Pete's a nice guy. You know, I liked it when Richie joined.
Richie's a better drummer. I think Richie's a better drummer anyway.
Sorry, Doris?
I have read the book, Mark Lewisham's book, and he explains it in the book. For instance, I didn't know, but he says in the book that in Hamburg, when they worked for Bert Kaempfert, that then already Bert Kaempfert took half the drum kit away from Pete Best and said he's no good. So he only had the tom-tom Snare, sorry.
But Pete did have a big following in Liverpool.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of trouble in Liverpool when he got the sack. You know, it's wrong really, but there was, we say, among the fans in Liverpool, the girl fans, you know, there was two camps. You know, it was only because they all fancied Pete. You know, but I just think Richie fitted in better.
Ringo viel dus naar de eigen mening van Freda beter in de smaak bij de Beatles, waardoor de puzzel compleet was. En ja, ze heeft ook uitgelegd dat inderdaad in het boek van Mark Lewison waarschijnlijk alle redenen wel zullen staan. En inderdaad, in dat boek staat ook dat tijdens de opnames voor Polydor met Burt Camford, inderdaad Pete zijn halve drumstel al gestript werd omdat hij niet op de basdrum kon spelen. En het was alleen de snare en de hi-hat. Maar ja, Pete was wel heel erg populair onder de meisjes, want die vonden hem allemaal erg knap. En ze is nog steeds bevriend met Pete Best.
I mean, it was a different ballgame when you looked at them on stage. You know, when Pete was with them, Pete didn't get involved with the fun. You know, he was quite shy and he kept his head to the side, or he didn't look up very often. That's just his personality. We're all different. But when Richie joined, you know, he wanted to be in the fun. You know, he would like wave to people and shout their names out, and you know, so he was just one of them. You know.
Pete Best zat altijd nors achter het drumstel en dat was gewoon zijn houding. En ja, Ringo was iemand die veel levendiger was en zich veel meer met het publiek bemoeide.
Which year would you say saw the popularity of the fan club reach its height, and were there certain events or controversies during the years that saw the number of members increase or decrease significantly?
Yeah, I mean, to me the peak was around 64, 65. It got like quite stressful for me then. And then of course it waned slightly, but the lead up was good.
In 1964 was de fanclub op hun hoogtepunt en daarna nam het wel iets af. And did it
I remember
decrease
just 100 people in the fan.
Did it decrease after John Lennon's remarks about Jesus?
No, I didn't. I can't really remember. I don't think it went down then. No, that didn't really affect the fan club.
Nou, dat beïnvloedde dus niet.
It did America, but not
in America
not
it did,
me,
yes.
not my involvement.
Oké, in 1966 toen John Lennon riep dat de Beatles populairder waren dan Jezus, was dat inderdaad in Amerika een grote schok en heeft dat daar veel fans gekorst, maar niet in Engeland.
Yeah, you mentioned the unexpected popularity of Ringo in the US. Is that partly because he was sort of a frontman himself as well?
That's what?
A frontman.
Yeah, I think so, and also because you know he was very funny and very well. They're all sociable, but he was like sociable with the fans, and you know,
particularly in the US.
Yeah, they could see. You know, he was a dancer, and I think they just took them into their arms, for want of a better word.
Ja, Ringo was dus inderdaad in Amerika populair omdat hij erg sociaal was, de anderen overigens ook, maar hij was ook nog erg grappig en kon goed dansen, dus ja, hij was daarom in Amerika populair.
Do you still have contact with Paul and Ringo?
No. I did see Paul last year when he played, but I didn't try and get backstage or anything. I wouldn't do that. And when Richie came to Liverpool, sorry, I keep saying it, Ringo came to Liverpool about 3 years ago. You know, I went to the concert, but I just walked out afterwards. But I mean, I see their families. You know, I live around the corner from Mike. See him quite regular. I'm seeing him next Saturday actually. I keep in contact with part of Ringo's family. His aunt, who's 96, Evie, she lives around the corner from my daughter. So they're involved with my grandson now and their grandchildren. So that way, but I mean, there was a big gap for me when I left and, you know, saw them, but I didn't really keep up the contact.
Nou, ze heeft dus geen contact meer in principe met Paul en Ringo. Ze heeft ze wel nog recent op zien treden voor vorig jaar Paul in Tokyo. Why Tokyo?
Because I went there last year. They bought the film, so they invited me out
Okay,
when
ja.
Paul was playing there.
Nou, ze werd dus uitgenodigd in Tokyo vanwege de DVD. En ze heeft Ringo 3 jaar geleden nog in Liverpool gezien. Ze heeft nog wel contact met een deel van de families van de Beatles. Volgende week gaat zij bijvoorbeeld weer, ziet ze Mike weer. Mike is de broer van Paul. En ook nog met een deel van de familie van Ringo. Zo'n tante van 96.
Sorry?
His aunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else got any questions?
Do you have any photographs of the original cavern stashed away in the attic?
I wish I did. No, I never took pictures in those days, and also, I know it's hard to believe because I'm talking to you now, but I was quite shy. I was quite reserved, So, and people didn't take pictures either. I did have quite a lot of old photographs that friends had taken, when they were on the cavern or we were at parties and things like that. But over the years, I know I lent, and I never got them back, to a magazine in America. I sent them, silly again, and they conveniently lost them in the post. So, but I did have some good photographs there, but it's just one of those things, isn't it?
Ja, ze maakte dus zelf geen foto's in de cavern. Ze was ook erg verlegen. Ze had er wel een heleboel van, ook door vrienden gemaakt. En die is helaas kwijtgeraakt toen ze opstuurde, onder andere naar een Amerikaans blad. En naar anderen, heel stom. Maar ja.
I haven't got much left, I didn't keep a lot, because when I entered the fan club, I thought that was it. And I did go to a convention in London, and with Alan, because I was very friendly with Alan Williams and Bob Wooler, and I went with them, and what I saw I didn't like really. I didn't want to be part of it, and I brought all handouts that I had and just gave them all away because I thought that was going to be it. So I kept a few things, like when I got married, they sent me telegrams, and I kept the first, Dave's seen it, when Brian Epstein took them over, he had a professional photographer to take pictures of them with Pete, all in the leather, and he had a lovely album made of it. And when the firm was going to London, and I wasn't going, he gave me that album, and I've kept that. It's not in my house, by the way. I know. Hello, I moved it.
Nou, voor mensen die haar willen bestelen, het ligt niet in haar huis, maar ze heeft nog wel een aantal dingen bewaard. Onder andere de telegrammen die ze kreeg toen ze ging trouwen. En een album met foto's, de eerste foto's, de publiciteitsfoto's die er van de Beatles gemaakt zijn.
The Albert Marion photographs, if you told me that. Taken by Albert Marion.
Ja, die door Albert Marion waren genomen, ja.
Very famous.
When will they be released?
Okay.
I think when will be published? These photos.
No, I'll keep them.
They are in books. They are in books.
Okay.
But these are the very first print.
Is that where Paul McCartney is leading with his?
No, it's the very. They've got black t-shirts on, black leather jackets, black leather trousers. And they just stand
even before.
It's a very famous session. If you saw one of the photographs, you'd recognise the others. Someone with a black backdrop, someone with a white one. It's the Mersey Beatles top pole.
Yes.
That set of photographs. That's that session. It's that one.
So Dave came to my house one night for dinner, and I said, "Well, I'll show you this album I've got." And then he went, "Do you realise the guy who signed it?" I hadn't even noticed. It was in the cover, wasn't it? Yeah.
Nou, het is dus de serie waarin ze nog in het leren zijn met Pete, die uiteindelijk ook op de beroemde voorkant van de Mersey Beat verscheen, de Beatles Top Paul. En die serie heeft ze dus gesigneerd door de fotograaf.
It is in the DVD. You'll see Freda looking at the book. It is in the DVD. You'll see.
So I do treasure that because Brian Epstein gave it to me, and it's quite an important album. What else have I kept? Just newspaper cuttings, Did anybody keep you?
I've been a fan.
Yeah. And I also Paul went to see the Crickets, and he came into the office and he was really excited about meeting the Crickets. You know, they were recording in London and everything, and he wanted to thank them, to say how good he thought they were and everything. And it was just me in that particular day, and he came in and he went, oh, you know, I want you to type a letter. I can't remember the exact words, but it was basically, can you type a letter, you know, do. And I, of course, had to do Brian Epstein's work, and I said, no, I haven't got time, you know, I'm doing other stuff. And then he said, well, I'll come back. And I said, tell you what, just write it down what you want, you know, me to say, and I'll type it. Anyway, I eventually typed it, because you've got a copy of the typed version. And for some unknown reason, I kept that. You know, I don't know why, but I did. So I've got that.
Ze heeft ook nog krantenknipsels en toen Paul McCartney de Crickets had gezien en ze een brief wilde sturen om te bedanken voor het geweldige optreden, wilde hij dat vroeg hij dat aan Freda en die had even op dat moment geen tijd, dus die zei schrijf het even op en dan ga ik het typen. En om een of andere mysterieuze reden heeft ze dat dus inderdaad bewaard.
And of course my autograph book, I've kept that. That's for my grandson.
En het boek met handtekeningen. Only the Beatles or other artists as well?
No, there's others. Jerry, the Big Three, the big Billy J, the Foremost, Scylla, other people from Liverpool.
Ja. Zo'n beetje alle artiesten van naam begin jaren 60 uit Liverpool staan erin, maar die gaan dus niet naar jullie, maar naar haar kleinzoon.
I don't know if Freda's been modest, but she was helping out with all those people she just mentioned, because they were names, and the respect that Freda's still got to this day. You'll see it in the DVD. There's two from the Foremost, and Billy Kinsley from the Mersey Beats talks about Freda. She's still got fantastic respect for what she did and what she's still doing. Haven't you?
Well, I'm still involved with Liverpool groups. You know, we set up a charity about 20 odd years ago called Mersey Cats. I don't know if you've heard of that or not. So I was involved in that with the Liverpool group. So I'm still, for want of a better word, on the scene.
En zoals Dave zei, ze was niet alleen betrokken bij de Beatles, maar bij eigenlijk al die bands die door NEMS onder contract stonden. En 20 jaar geleden is ook een stichting opgericht die zich op die Liverpoolse band richt.
But we've all grown up together, so we're still all friends.
We have an event every month in a place near Liverpool where we have a Mersey Beats afternoon. There's guests from the groups who come and we have an interview with them. But it's like one big family when they all get together. They all see one another, all the old group members, Freda's there, and it's just like a family meeting up every month, and it's a fantastic afternoon. And this has been going on, we've been doing it for about 12, 13 years now, haven't we? Really is fantastic, and you see the loyalty that there was, and all those groups, they're still friends to all the group members, they still play in each other's groups, they have sessions, jam sessions, and we have a fantastic afternoon.
Well, how that happened was, I'm still working, by the way. I work for solicitors for my sins, and I'm involved in mental health law, and also criminal law. And it was one of the probation officers. He found out what I had done in my past, and he knew the guy that owned the fort in New Brighton, and he knew Dougie wanted to get into the music scene. So he said to me, if I introduce you to Dougie, could you introduce him to a few groups, and then maybe we put something on, you know, once a month. And that's how it started. I gradually, you know, rang round the groups over a period of time and said, why don't you come to this venue and just, you know, have a cup of coffee or a drink on Sunday afternoon, and that's how it started.
Where is that venue in Liverpool?
It's actually on the other side of Liverpool.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just a few hundred yards from where the Tower Ballroom was in New Brighton, where they played quite a few times. Famous venue.
Yeah, it's a big fort. You know.
Okay.
Years ago it used to protect the river.
From the French.
Ja, het begon dus allemaal toen, ja, ze werkt nog steeds voor in de rechterhoek, zeg maar, en een officier van justitie vroeg haar om die bands met elkaar te brengen. En ja, die komen dus nog steeds, en er is heel veel broederschap tussen al die bands en ze spelen in elkaars bands en fantastische middagen.
It's like it's like the way the cavern was in the beginning. You know, it's like an afternoon. People are just very relaxed. You're shouting up to the groups that are on stage. even when Dave interviews, we say, no, you've got that wrong, you know, it was such and such, and you can have a cup of coffee, and even the seats, they're a bit odd, you know, they're not all matching. So it's a good afternoon.
Het is een beetje net als in de begindagen van de cavern, waarin dan gewoon mensen weer om verzoekjes kunnen schreeuwen. En als Dave ze interviewt dan, en hij zegt iets verkeerds, dan gaan ze hem corrigeren. Dus ja, het is een beetje als in de begindagen. En ook de stoelen zijn een beetje vreemd, want die zijn allemaal verschillend.
Yeah, Freda said Pete Best was a guest. He's been several times, in fact.
Big Three, Johnny Hutch.
Big Three, the Undertakers, the Foremost, Billy and Dave are there quite often, Joey. What the other groups do you want
Well,
to
the other people, they mightn't remember other groups, they won't remember the others, but, you know, who's been down? Jerry's been down.
Remo 4, Harry.
Yeah, Remo 4, Cliff Roberts, Dave Williams.
Dave Williams from the Jaywalkers.
Mike Byrne from the Roadrunners. They're all old Liverpool groups.
If you look through the listings of the caverns, all these names.
They're all in it, we're all getting old, you see. All heading for 70. Or some of them are over 70.
And did Jackie Lomax still play with the Undertakers?
Yeah,
Jackie passed away last year.
He was a guest. Jackie was a guest.
Yeah, he was there because I know Jackie's ex-wife, Dee. She just lives around the corner from me. And when Jackie was home, he always stayed in Dee, so I would drag them out to different places. Like I got him involved with Colin, who mines John Lennon's house, because he's involved with George Martin. And then Colin said to me, do you know Jackie Lomax? And I went, yeah, you know, can you bring him here? And eventually then he got involved. He'd done another CD, before he died.
Yeah,
so we're all still interlinked, you know. I mean, I'm going to America in May, and I'm hoping to do the Elvis thing, you know, Nashville and Memphis. And then there's 3 people I know in Nashville. They're all musicians from Liverpool. And one of them I mentioned in the film, Richie Rutledge. He was in the Big Three, the Crying Shames. And I just said to Richie in an email, you know, oh, you can tell me where to go when I come to Nashville. And then he said, Freda, when you come to Nashville, I'll show you Nashville. And I don't know if you've heard of Liverpool Express.
Yes.
He was Billy Kingsley's after the Mersey Reeds. Well, one of them lives in Nashville. One of the Undertakers lives in Nashville. So I'll have 3 people I know in Nashville when I go.
Ze gaan dus volgend jaar nog naar Nashville en zeg maar het Elvis gebied, Memphis as well.
Yeah, well, hopefully.
Oh, hopefully. You should go there. En ze kent dus ook weer 3 Liverpoolse muzikanten, dus ze wordt daar ook weer warm onthaald en door die mensen die gaan haar de stad laten zien. Dus ja, het is gewoon een hele echte familie nog steeds.
So we all keep in touch, you know, even if it's just once a year or something like that. We're all involved with each other. Even where my daughter lives, when my daughter first got the house where she is, it was a cul-de-sac, and I'm just walking up, and next minute I heard this voice, Freda, what are you doing here? I turned around, and it was a guy from the Escorts, if you've heard of that, and he lives in the road. And I said, my daughter lives in this road. He said, Freda, I've lived in this road for 20 odd years. So I call him there.
Ja, zelfs in de straat dus waar haar dochter woont, kent ze weer een Liverpoolse muzikant van de Escorts. Dus ja, hele hechte scene.
The whole Mersey Beat scene is a fantastic story, and I think those of you who bought the DVD will find Freda's. It's only a brief story, really. She's got so much to say, so many memories. She's absolutely fantastic, and I think we should treasure what we've got. The DVD is a fantastic piece of memorabilia for Beatles fans, and I think you'll all love it. Those who've seen it, those who've bought it. Oh, one more question.
Yeah, well, a few weeks ago, Brian Epstein has been inducted in the Rock and Roll of Fame. You being one of the secretaries, can you tell us maybe some more about what
well,
it was
I
like
know,
working for him?
Yeah, sorry I interrupted you in a flow. I did know it was being put forward because Billy J started the ball rolling. Now I know Peter Asher was involved in it, but I don't think Peter Asher should have done it. You know, I'll probably get shot down for this, but I thought maybe they did approach Ringo and Paul, and they didn't do it. But I then think they should have either gone to Jerry or Billy J or Cilla or the Foremost. They're all alive, and they were very heavily involved with Brian Epstein. It should have been somebody like that, not Peter Ashton. You know. Brian Epstein, I don't know what you want me. Did you carry on? Yeah. People say to me, you know, was he a hard boss? He was a hard boss, but he was two different people. He was the boss in the office, and you didn't make a mistake. You know, if you made a mistake, you knew about it. Very quick-tempered. I won't go into too much detail, but outside he was very nice. And I think, you know, there was 10 years difference between me and him. But in those days, that 10 years was a lot. You know, he was like 27 and I was only 17. But, you know, he took me out, you know, for meals, and took me to the Empire to see the Beatles. And so I have a lot of respect for him. And I am glad that, because I do believe the Beatles would, you'd know about the Beatles without Brian Epstein, without George Martin. You know, they were definitely going to be famous. But they wouldn't have been as famous without those type of people. Not as famous as they are, but they definitely would have been famous without them.
En Brian Epstein is dus de voormalige Beatles manager, is dus voorgedragen voor de Rock'n'Roll Hall of Fame, maar ze zijn naar de verkeerde persoon toegestapt. In de vorm van Peter Ash, ze hadden eigenlijk naar Cilla Black of dat soort mensen moeten gaan. Brian Epstein was een strenge baas, vooral als je een fout maakte. Erg temperamentvol, maar naar de buitenwereld ook een heel aardig mens. En hij nam Freda vaak mee uit eten en dat soort dingen. Freda denkt dat de Beatles zonder Brian Epstein ook wel doorgebroken zouden zijn, maar niet zo populair zouden zijn geworden als wat ze zijn geworden.
Question to Can you describe what the situation became or was after the passing of Brian Epstein, the second in the family?
Well, I mean, God, it was such a shock to all of us, and I don't know which Beatles said it, but I just remember it was like, where do we go from here? You know, what's going to happen now? But then, I mean, Paul, they were looking to start their own firm anyway beforehand, so then things escalated, you know, moved on very quickly from when he died. I mean, when Eppie started the firm, he made his brother Clive Epstein a director of the firm. Although Clive didn't want to be involved with the music scene at all, he was more on his father's side, you know, selling televisions and washing machines. Clive was more interested in that. But he got thrown in the deep end, you know, when Eppie died. And then, of course, Apple had already started, and we had Peter Brown, and we had Neil, and Derek. And so there was a lot of people that we were all like very. I know I shouldn't say this, but it was like the Liverpool lot knitted together very quickly, you know, which I'm glad about.
Ja, het was wel even schok toen Brian Epstein doodging, maar de rol werd al snel overgenomen door een aantal mensen, onder andere Paul, die zich met de businesskant ging bemoeien. Ook de broer van Brian Epstein, Clive, die eigenlijk daarin werd gegooid en dat niet zo graag wilde, want die was meer geïnteresseerd in het verkopen van wasmachines en dat soort zaken. Ja, en ook andere mensen raakten betrokken. Ook weer een hele hechte Liverpoolse groep mensen. Derek Taylor zat erbij, Peter Brown. Ja, dat soort mensen.
Okay. We've got time for one more question. Anybody's got one last question? Young lady there.
I saw the DVD compliments. I really enjoyed it. I have a question. After the Beatles broke up, did you follow them? Like sort of the things that happened to John? And I can imagine you were devastated when he was murdered.
It just knocked me for six, you know. I got a phone call from America anyway, before it broke. And I worked, in those days, I worked up in a farm in the middle of nowhere, you know, and when a tragedy happens to me or something happens to me, I would go into myself. I just like my own company to adjust to it, and I was going to stay at home, and then my husband at the time said, I really think you should go to work, because people will find out when they come to the house, and if you don't want to face them, you're best going up to the farm. So I went up there, but they still found me up there. But it took a long time to like sink in what had actually happened, you know, when that happened. But also the shock of Brian Epstein as well, you know, and also George. Although we were forewarned, you know, that there was no turning back with George. It was, you know, they're still young in my eyes, and you know, I'd grown up with them, and so naturally affected me.
Het heeft haar geraakt uiteraard dat John Lennon werd vermoord. Zij kreeg een telefoontje uit Amerika en ja, dat heeft haar heel erg van slag gebracht en het duurde heel lang voordat ze dat kon begrijpen, maar ook de dood van Brian Epstein. En toen ze te horen, ze wist al dat George ongeneeslijk ziek was, maar ook het overlijden van George heeft haar heel erg aangegrepen.
It's like there was a show in Liverpool last week called Let It Be. You know, like copy Beatles. And I'm not really into copy Beatles, you know, but I did go to this and they were very good. You know, give credit where it's due, they were good. But I didn't realise how much it affected me because they played When My Guitar Gently Weeps, and I got a lump in the throat on that one because it brought a lot of memories back to me. First of all, like, there was a lot going on in the company, which I won't go into details about, when he wrote that, and I just thought George is getting comfort from his guitar, and so I kept thinking of George and then all things. So there's certain songs that, you know, do. But also I loved the show because it opened my memory back. You know, Magical Mystery Tour, they'd done the numbers from that, and the Cavern, and so it was a good night for me. So if it ever comes, you should go and see it.
Let It Be.
Let It Be.
Let It Be. Dat was er vorige week, een Beatle coverband, en hoewel ze daar normaal niet zo van houdt, was erbij, een hele goede band. En ja, het maakt ook heel veel in haar los. While My Guitar Gently Weeps, daar kreeg ze een brok van in de keel, omdat het herinneringen terugbracht aan destijds en de problemen binnen Apple. En George die dan zijn ziel kon leggen in zijn gitaarspel. Maar ook andere nummers die heel veel herinneringen terugbrachten. De nummers van de Magical Mystery Tour bijvoorbeeld, waar ze natuurlijk bij was.
Okay, then with that.
It's over.
Well, Freda's going to be in the hall in a bit. If you want to ask any questions, I'm afraid we're going to have to call it a halt to that because we've got to finish at 1 o'clock because we've got to clear the room. So if you don't put your hands together for Freda Kelly.